This is my pinch pot project. It was an assignment for my digital image class. The assignment was to make something every day, not with the goal of having an object at the end, more for engaging us in our own creative process. And you might wonder, for a digital image class, why would someone choose to make pinch pots? Well, I've worked in clay before, and it was as if there was something unfinished about that. So I wanted to complete that. And also, I just love clay. I love the malleability and the way it bends itself to your will. This was the first pot that I made. It's just very simple. It's the simplest shape, in fact, I think that you could make from a pinch pot. With a pinch pot, you just take a lump of clay, smooth it, and then you just squeeze it with your fingers into the shape that you want. And this pot, you can see, is designed to seat in the hands. And my theory is that's how people started making pots. It's really they're just a substitute for being able to hold something in your hand. And I, in fact, explored that idea with these they're little hand pots. They're just completely shaped to fit in the hand, fit in the palm of the hand. They're rather thin, they're fairly delicate. In fact, all of these are very delicate right now. They haven't been fired. And to me, these began to kind of embody the idea of sort of a little offering. And I explored this idea of something for pouring, shape for pouring, came kind of a leaf shape, and I did some other vessels, little pitchers like that. These are not functional at all. You have to hold them in your hand to use them. And that, I think, was one of the pleasures of this project, was that they were not, there's no need to make anything functional. And although I did decide to make a friend of mine a bowl, and that turned out to be kind of difficult. It was difficult to get enough clay to work with a big enough piece of clay to get a functional bowl, and I think this is not quite big enough. And there's some limitations there. You have to be able to reach with your hand into the pot. And then I also tried a little experiment. How small can you go? My housemate Bruce says that these are mice bowls. I'll have to hold these up for you to show you these. Little tiny, as small as you could get. And, I made some other vessels, just experimenting with shape and texture. I love it when the clay keeps the finger marks and fingerprints. And I don't like it when it dries out and gets these little crack marks, this kind of a clayey kind of texture. I like it more when my hands have kind of dominated the clay and won out over that clayey texture. And then I experimented with thick as opposed to thin, and actually I like that a lot. There's sort of a sense of integrity and sturdiness to that I really like. And I made some shapes that I really enjoyed. Like I enjoy the shape of this little piece, but it didn't really take me anywhere. It didn't really go anywhere from that. I also explored, what do you have to go with round, and does it help, if you start out with a cylindrical ball of clay? So I made some of these little tube vessels. And then one day I made a little pot, and I made a little lid to go on it, and I kept seeing that, and I really liked that, so I pursued that idea. There was something intriguing about these little, I'm calling them gnome pots now, because they kind of either look like gnomes themselves, or maybe a gnome would have this. And what do you put in these little vessels? They're very small. I think you put something in there that's maybe precious, but it could be abundant but precious, or maybe it's not a precious thing to humans. Maybe you put your milk thistle in there, or maybe it's fantasy, maybe you put your fairy dust in there. There's something almost nut-like in these. And I explored, the shape of the vessel and the different shapes of the lids where you could go with that. And I think where I'm going to go with this project next is in this phase of the project, I gave myself very narrow constraints. Everything is just pinch pot. Each piece is made from one piece of clay. They're all finished in one sitting. And the only tools that I was using was my hands. So I think I'm going to expand that out now and allow myself to do more complex projects, pieces that might take more than one day to finish. And pieces that explore more hand building techniques. Pinch pots are a hand building technique. Explore also maybe coiling, slab building, and bring in some tools so that I can do some work with different textures, cut pieces out if I want, layer things on. And this is my most recent piece. I made that yesterday. It's still wet. You see it's very thick, evenly, even thickness to the walls, very solid. That'll make a lid to that later today. And so I think I'm going to also continue to explore this gnome pot idea. There's something almost architectural about some of these, so I think I'm going to, they started to seem like you could put them together and maybe make a little gnome castle with them. And then my housemate Eric looked at them and said, why don't you build a little gnome village? You know, build it, they will come. So I'm going to work in that direction next. Thanks for sharing my pinch pots with me.